There is no way to describe what is happening in U.S. single-family home markets and the rental markets as anything other than crazy the last couple months. So some of the data we're getting out in just the last couple weeks is absolutely nuts. The Wall Street Journal has also been putting out articles for the last couple months about how pension funds and foreign governments and other large financial institutions like BlackRock have been buying up 24% of entire areas of single-family homes. They're just buying nonstop. So you have foreign governments, foreign pension funds, American pension funds, and then large financial institutions desperate for income because interest rates are low, because central banks and governments are manipulating them down with financial repression and stagflate tax lie. And then you're starting to see these new data points that are coming out, whether it's a chart on the left-hand side of your screen, the index of U.S. house price to rent ratio. House price to rent exceeds the housing bubble peak, hits the highest on record. The Consumer Price Index, or CPI, uses the owner's equivalent rent. So of course that doesn't account for any of this. The same goes for healthcare insurance, which the government uses reimbursements for Medicare and Medicaid. So the Consumer Price Index doesn't accurately count for home prices going up. Home prices have risen enormously here in the US the last 15 or so months as people scrambled to buy assets and people moved out of the major cities, buying up houses in suburban areas or in more rural areas, and then also in health insurance. I will attach definition of the owner's equivalent rent in the information and description section. The other chart that I wanted to talk about, and I couldn't fit it here on the screen, so I'll try to put it on a thumbnail for the video. It's also in the Wall Street for Main Street Facebook group, is the expected change in rent over the next 12 months according to survey data, and it's the highest one on record going back about 15 years. So 9.5% expected hike according to the New York Federal Reserve's own data, in expected change in rent over the next 12 months. And then we also just had a story come out on Tuesday, June 15th, that rents for single-family homes just saw the largest gains in nearly 15 years. So that's the actual increase in rents, but the expected change, the increase in rents, is expected to keep going up according to that survey data. So you're seeing more and more evidence that rents are starting to go up. They were down during the pandemic as people left the major metro areas in the US. Now they've started to rally with a fury. And you're also seeing these stories come out of lots of big players that you wouldn't think would want to buy enormous amounts of single-family homes all over the US, and they are stockpiling them looking for rental property income. So if you want to read more about that and you have a Wall Street Journal subscription for a couple of the articles, I'll put the links to them in the information and description section. There was also a free article from the Daily Mail recently on June 12th that U.S. home prices are being pushed up by pension funds that are outbidding middle-class families and purchasing up to 24% of houses in some areas they then rent out for rental property income because governments and central banks are manipulating interest rates down with financial repression so the size of government can grow and central banks can continue to monetize this debt. And so these pension funds still need income and they're looking at real estate. And that is causing people in my age demographic and a little bit younger right after college, these starter homes that young couples used to be able to afford in the past, they're no longer affordable. Unless, of course, you have parents and grandparents either giving the young couples the down payment and or co-signing their mortgage loans, which is very, very common now here in the area I live in, the DC metro area. It has been very, very common in areas like China and India for a very long time, where the male about to get married will have his parents and relatives chip in to buy him a house, but now it's coming here to the US. Finally, if you like content like this and want to help keep content like this free so it doesn't all end up behind a paywall, please sign up for my Patreon. There is almost 170 articles, charts, and audio podcasts solely for patrons, a lot of in-depth content on global macro and individual companies and sectors, and there is also a 45-minute audio interview with Sandstorm Gold CEO Nolan Watson, exclusive for patrons. If you don't like it, you can always cancel. Only $5 a month, the cost of a bad cup of coffee, but I think you're really going to love the content. I think the research and analysis and financial education behind the paywall is some of the best out there. And a lot of my competitors charge $10, $20, $30 a month. I'm only charging $5 because I want the information out there and people to benefit, like how royalty and streaming companies and companies like Sprott Inc. are a lot safer than a lot of these risky junior mining stocks that a lot of these newsletter writers have vested interest in and don't properly disclose.